Hi there, everyone. Welcome to the Class E Podcast. I am your host, Mary Sturgill. Remember, this is the podcast that's brought to you through a partnership between the Hill Institute for Innovation and Entrepreneurship and the Communication Studies Department here at Furman University. And today, we are doing a special segment that falls in line with our Everyday Entrepreneur segment that we're doing, where we talk to the graduates of the Greenville Starts program about their ventures and where they are now that they've graduated from the program. Today, we have two guests whose goal it is to tickle your sweet tooth, so to speak. Anthony Maboko and Chantae Wardlaw, who are the owners of Mochinut. Welcome to the show, guys.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Chantae, let's start with you. What is your background before you got into Mochinut?
After I finished college, I still am, I guess, a dental assistant. And I did that for about 9 years. And then I realized I needed to do something else. So I went and got my real estate license, which I currently still do as well. That just keeps the money coming in until we, further along opening our Mochinut store.
Yeah. Anthony, what about you?
Ooh, I'm a jack of all trades.
Yeah.
No.
So is she, apparently.
Right. So I work with a top 3 tech company as an operations sales manager. Did it back in New York, and they actually relocated me down here to Greenville, South Carolina. Been doing that for 7 years now. Keeps the bills paid, but to Chantae's point, there is a bigger picture in this life of entrepreneurship. So, and we're here to talk about it.
Yeah. So let's dive right into that now that we know you a little bit. Mochinut, for people who might not know, what is that?
So Mochinut is the name of the franchise, but a mochi donut is the mixture of Japanese mochi and an American donut to make a mochi donut. So it gives it a chewy, crisp texture when you bite into it.
And they're so good.
They're so good, yes. And they come in different flavors, so that's just the basic is the mochi donuts.
Yeah.
And then we'll also have Korean hot dogs and bubble tea.
When you went to Greenville Starts, what was the pitch to get in?
It's a long story, but long story short, we originally came in with just a bubble tea idea. Back in late 2019, we were just strictly making bubble tea, and we wanted to bring it out to Greenville because there was not too many stores open. And then the pandemic hit, but in the back of our heads, we always wanted to also serve food as well. So through the actual Greenville Starts program, we were actually going to franchise off of a California franchise that does bubble tea, as well as a little bit of other foods here and there. But long story short, we got into the process and it actually got canceled. And we found another franchise called the Lovely Mochinut. So through trial and error with us making our own bubble tea to us going through another franchise and then Mochinut, we're here now. How
did you come to the decision to say, because you could just start your own Mochinut restaurant, right, or mochi donut restaurant and serve the tea and serve the donuts and stuff. How did you come to the decision to franchise rather than opening a brand new one?
When we flew to California to meet with the distributors, it's just the whole process. And then that being in the West Coast and coming to the East Coast, and it was during the pandemic, we just thought that it would be easier to just franchise, get our names in there, get familiar with the process, and then probably eventually branch out on our own. So that's why we just decided to do a franchise at first, because it'll just give us more knowledge.
And that makes sense because they already have the formula kind of down pat, and you just have to follow their program basically. So for people who don't understand what necessarily how a franchise works, can you kind of explain how you go about buying into a franchise and what that means?
First and foremost, you have to do your research, right, before actually meeting with the franchise owners, the CEOs, and all that stuff. So for us, we want to make something that's actually something fairly brand new, but that can also keep in touch with the millennials, the Gen Zs, right? So that's why we kind of tapped in with Mochinut. They were right there with the social media presence, with their great food, their great drinks. But all in all, besides research, you want to make sure you have the money. That's the biggest thing.
Because it's not cheap. It's not like an easy way out.
And not cheap at all. This is the biggest risk. It's the biggest gamble. It's a lot of money. To start a franchise, you got a franchise fee, you got equipment costs, you got rent, you got electricity, you got water, you got gas, you got, did I say equipment?
You really have all the same startup costs that you would have if you were starting from scratch.
Exactly. Exactly.
They just hand us that
the suppliers.
Yeah,
So
the
that's the great
suppliers,
thing
the
about it, because that's the
platform,
hardest
yeah.
thing to find nowadays is your suppliers.
So where are you guys in the process?
We're opening late fall. The address is 1300 SC 14 Greer, South Carolina. We're Suite C on the corner, so we have a drive-through as well. We have different flavors rotating every week. So if you miss a flavor during one of the weeks that you might have wanted to try it, it will come back around within a couple of months.
Yeah, excellent. So there's always lots of choices for people.
Yes.
So did you guys consider yourselves entrepreneurs? Because I mean, from a dental background and then real estate is very entrepreneurial. Dentist tech, maybe not so much, dentist hygienist. But when did you begin to consider yourself entrepreneurs?
I think being an entrepreneur isn't something that you just wake up and say, I'm going to be an entrepreneur. It's something that bothers you, I would say, for years. And I've always known, no matter if I went to college, if I got a job, if I quit my job, I always knew that I wanted to be my own boss.
Right.
And I just didn't know what to do or how to get there.
That's kind of hard to top as far as that answer. But me having a background in corporate sales for 7 years, that was just my mindset the entire time. Like, hey, I got a really great job, real great benefits, real great pay, and that's what I'm gonna do until I'm extremely old. Until I met Chantae, she's seen me working from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. every single day, and now we have kids, right? So it's kind of hard with that balance.
Yeah.
And I was like, but where can we make the same amount of money? She was like, it might not be the same amount, and it might not be for a long time. However, the time that you get back, and timing is way more important.
For sure.
Time is way more important than money,
Yeah.
because you can't get that back, right?
Yeah.
So fast forward now, we have Mochinut, and we pray that it will do great. We know it will be great because we pray every day, and we have a great, solid team. So that's my answer to that.
How do your strengths complement each other and weaknesses complement each other?
So in Greenville Starts, one of the first assignments before we actually, like the week maybe before, we had to do like a personality type test. And it's 3 different personalities you can be. He was A and I was B, so we need a C.
Right.
So it made sense when we got into the program, like, okay, this is who I am, so we're gonna do this. And he's who he is, so he's more so of the, what's your idea, we'll figure it out, and I'm more so reading the fine print, getting the lines, but then we come together and make it work.
Yeah. So what have you learned in this franchising process that you did not know before that might help some of our listeners?
Cool. I have a really good one. Me, myself, working at that corporate office for 7 years, we have a certain way, like you get it done right here, it's done right then and there. Now working with other people, from suppliers, distributors, contractors, it's not on your time.
Right.
It's on their time.
Right.
So what I'm trying to say is be patient. Please be patient, because this is a really long and stressful process. And the last thing you want is you being stressed out because of a timing issue, because you want it on your time. It will never be on your time.
Yeah.
Just FYI.
Yeah.
So.
Well, that's a good one. What about you?
I've learned that, like he said, it's not on your own time.
Yeah.
And just don't stop though, because the moment you think you want to give up, the moment you think you're gonna stop, there goes your answer. And then it's like, okay. So, but it's like the push too. It's like the push, because you know that we're building something for our family. So that it's at a point where we can just really sit back and just be like, okay, we built this. Let's spend time. Let's be a family. I know we're gonna have to work and go back around in a circle a little bit, but I just like the fact that it's something that we can say is ours.
How are you managing that balance between family time and work time? Because I can imagine you're trying to launch this thing, right? Yes. Or getting this thing launched, and you have the kids and you have the family life, and you're together 24/7 almost probably. How do you manage that without killing each other?
All of my family is here.
Yeah.
So, and my mom lives like right up the street. So they are very supportive.
Yeah.
And if we have to go open the door for a contractor, or if we have to come to an interview, I'm like, hey, Mom, can you watch either? She's like, sure, yeah. And then his mom is moving from New York, hopefully in a couple weeks.
Yeah.
So she'll be here to help as well. But as far as us in the
That support
household,
system is huge.
It's huge.
Yeah.
we don't have an official meeting place, so we have meetings in our bed because the baby sleeps, and so while they're sleeping, we have our late night meetings at night to just go over what we need to do for the next day. We'll set up emails to have them schedule sent like out for the next day and just go to sleep.
Yeah.
And just that's the only way we can stay balanced, because trying to talk during the day.
It's impossible.
That's working smarter, not harder, I think,
Right.
Yeah.
because you're using that valuable time that you have
Yeah,
when the
also-
baby's asleep.
Because she kind of mentioned like the family being here and all that stuff, and there's also other sides to it, because we don't have her mom. She's working every
Right.
day, Monday
Yeah.
through Friday. So just to be real with the audience, sometimes we have to bring the kids with us.
Yeah.
We have 3.
Yeah.
Sometimes if they're not at daycare or maybe they're sick or whatever the case may be, we have to bring all 3 of them to open the doors for the contractors.
Right.
Or we're talking to the contractors over the phone, they're screaming in the background saying, they're hungry or this, whatever the case may
Yeah.
be. They have to be with us at any given time.
Yeah.
So it's not all glitz and glamour, but there's a lot of background stuff that we have to get done. Sometimes I have to take off of work
Yeah.
to get it done, you
Yeah.
know. Sometimes I have to schedule 2 weeks in advance, a day off to get stuff for Mochinut completed.
Right. Because Chantae, you have a lot of flexibility, but he's still working his full-time job as well. And you have to go in normal business hours, I'm assuming.
Correct,
Yeah.
yep.
So you're still launching this and through still having your other jobs as well.
She's also closing houses
Yeah.
at least 2-3 times every single month, so
Right.
it's extremely busy with paperwork.
That takes a lot of time out of your
A
day,
lot
too.
of time.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
As long as we have the kids with some food, if they have to come with us, they're
Right. They're good. They're good to go.
snacks. And
What ages are they?
6 years old, 18 months, and 2 months.
Oh yeah. So they're still little.
Yes.
If you can, I want you to share with me something that you have found rewarding in this whole process.
I would say the most rewarding part is the fact of the times that we can have our kids with us, because being a dental assistant, I could not take my child to work. Working at the sales department, you could not bring your kids on a just whenever you want to type basis. So that's rewarding, because they're seeing, especially the 6-year-old, she's seeing what we're doing. She's excited. She doesn't know, but she knows, and she tells people hey, we're gonna have a donut shop.
Yeah.
So she's handing out our business cards and everything. So I like to see that part, because it's, other than the basic foundation of learning your basic math, reading, we're putting her on the business standpoint, and then we can carry that along to the middle child and the youngest when they get a little bit older too.
Yeah, 100%, because they're learning through watching you guys.
Yes,
Yeah.
and we didn't. Well, I didn't have that growing up. I mean, my dad is an entrepreneur in a certain way, but
Yeah.
I mean, we didn't have that the knowledge that we learned through Greenville Starts, of how to do it. So we're kind of really building it from scratch, trial and error.
Oh, that's what entrepreneurship is a lot of times. Anthony, what about you? What has been one of the rewarding things from this?
So far, I mean, it would have to be the kids. I mean,
Yeah.
especially our 6-year-old. I'm just going to repeat everything Chantae said.
No,
That's a good
seriously,
man.
Because
It just teaches them to hey, there's something else.
Right.
There's more other than, if you want to be nurse, doctor, astronaut.
whatever.
Right,
case
the
may
normal
be.
things that
It's
kids
still
think of.
fun.
Yeah.
That's totally fine, but there's still other things that you can do as well.
Yeah.
And that's what we're trying to create in our household, to be your own boss. So yeah, I would say that. And then the biggest reward will be us opening, of course.
Yeah.
But for now, it's just teaching our family and
Yeah.
teaching also like-minded individuals within our family and friends that also want to start.
Yeah.
So we like doing that as well.
I think that's so important that you brought that up, because one of the things that I know for sure is that people in your family watch you and they see what you do, and that inspires them to do things that they maybe have in the back of their mind that, if they can do it, I can do it too, right?
Absolutely.
And even, not just family, it goes beyond that, friends, your whole circle, right? Your whole circle of influence. I think it kind of influences everybody, which is really good for our community, honestly.
Absolutely.
Let's talk about Greenville Starts for a minute. For those of you who might not know, Greenville Starts is an 8-week program that's basically fueled by the Hill Institute for Innovation and Entrepreneurship here at Furman, for entrepreneurs in the Upstate and beyond, quite honestly, because we've had several entrepreneurs come in from other places. in which it gives folks who are starting or who have started, honestly, they're, I'm sure you guys in your cohort had people from all different aspects, all different stages of their entrepreneurship journey. But it arms them with training, with connections, with access to capital needed to start something brand new and successfully launch a program or a venture and grow that venture. And then it culminates in a Shark Tank type pitch session. Everyone does a video for their pitch, and then the judges judge those pitches, and they have this big night. It's a whole lot of fun. So even if you don't think you're an entrepreneur, you should actually try to get in and go to the event itself because it's a lot of fun to watch too. What were your takeaways from that program that kind of helped you go to this next level?
So I think like the main thought of an entrepreneur is they have that idea and then because they want to make money. So Greenville Starts just added the in-between steps, like getting the legal steps correct, getting the capital, networking, marketing. It's a whole lot that they spread out through each week. So, and it takes you to get the information and to just implement it. Because if you can read all day, but they had the connections there with real-time people other than just a Google search, like telling you what they've been through, what they've saw, and how to just make everything work in a strategic way. So.
Not everybody's an attorney, so you don't know the legal ins and outs of starting a company, right? Unless you've done it before previously. So it's really good to get connected with those people and those experts in every particular area that they pull in. Anthony, what about you? What were some of your takeaways?
Ooh, there's so many, but if I can pick just one, I would have to say the relationships. So everything from the first day, just getting to know about your business, all the way to the legal standpoint, right? The lawyer connections, the financial connections, just every single connection you can think of when starting a business is all right there for Greenville Starts. And we always say relationships wins championships, so that's extremely important in every business. You need to know every single person that does what, that maybe they handle financials, maybe they handle the legal side of things. So that's where Greenville Starts came in, and we didn't really know about that other side of business, so thank you again, Greenville Starts.
Yes, thank you, Greenville Starts.
Saved you a lot of headaches. Speaking of headaches, we've all had little, hiccups and, failures along the way in our ventures. Have you guys experienced any of those, and how did you overcome them?
So I think the main hiccup would have been when we were searching for an actual commercial space.
The brick and mortar store.
Brick and mortar store, yes, because it was either finding a second generation restaurant or building it from a shell.
Right.
And each one costs different things.
Right. So and none are cheap.
None are cheap. And we got something in between. So we didn't have to initially start from the beginning of a shell, and but we didn't find a place that had a like a hood inside. So we're in between with that. So that was the major hiccup. So once we found our space, it was like we could breathe. Right.
And you had your real estate expertise to kind of nail that space in, which is nice.
Yes, but the background, I guess, into that, a lot of the commercial realtors and the landlords, they want to know, they pick based off of how great they think your business is.
So you have to qualify in their eyes just to be there.
Yeah, and we're like, it's gonna work, it's gonna work, it's gonna work, it's good.
So did you have to go take your business plan and your projections and everything just to rent the space?
Yes.
And see, a lot of people might not even know that, right?
At least 30 times, by the way.
Yeah.
Before you actually get your actual one, you have to go through at least 30 closed doors.
Wow.
Maybe 40.
Yeah.
Maybe 40 closed doors. Talking from experience.
Yeah.
And that's all the way from Greenville, Piedmont, Anderson, Simpsonville. We did Greer before we actually got our Greer location. I'm talking about all over Spartanburg, everywhere. 30, 40 doors closed, but we finally have one.
I would imagine, because restaurants had such a difficult time during the pandemic, that you go to somebody, we're still in the pandemic, right? You go to somebody and say, hey, we want to rent your space for this donut shop. And they're like, well, we're in the middle of a pandemic. People aren't still, eating out that much and, that kind of thing. Right. I'm sure you got some of that.
Oh, yes.
We got it a lot via email. And that's where the financials kicked in. Like, hey, since we're going through a pandemic right now, what do your financials look like?
Right.
How much money do you have in the bank? All this stuff. But long story short, if you have a really great business plan, really good business, I'm talking about solid 15 plus pages on every section of your business.
You have done your due diligence,
Yes,
in other words, yeah.
absolutely.
Everything from about you all the way to projections will go a long way, because it's not all about money. It's just the knowledge, how much knowledge you have about your business and how can you run it. Just in case of another pandemic or a recession comes, how can you handle it? So.
I think that's a very good piece of advice for people to, one, have your ducks in a row and have everything that you need before you go approach people, whether it's about a building or, you know, a loan or whatever the case may be. Are you guys self-funded, or did you have to seek out financial folks to support you? How have you been doing that?
We're self-funded, community-funded, corporation-funded. Anything with a fund on it, we're getting into it. And anything that has a grant, a loan, or whatever the case may be, something that can help us.
You're looking at it. And you mentioned grants. I think that's one thing that a lot of small business folks and entrepreneurs don't even think about sometimes as a way of funding, is maybe getting a small business grant or something like that that's available to you.
That's probably the best option, besides like angel investors and all that stuff there, because obviously loans, you have to pay it back, right? So who wants to do loans?
And a lot of times banks won't loan or to new businesses or to restaurants, because restaurants fail more than any other entrepreneurial venture.
Exactly. Grants are the way to go.
So that's a really good point that you bring up. Do you have any advice for people who might be thinking, oh, I have an idea and I want to start that, but something is holding them back?
Yeah. That's a great question. The only thing that's holding them back is them. Because seriously, we have so many entrepreneur friends, and they're like, man, I have this great idea. 5 years later passes, and we'll probably have 5 Mochinuts, and they're still stuck on that idea.
Right.
So what I'm trying to say is,
and someone else has already taken that idea.
Exactly. There's no perfect path when starting a restaurant, a car dealer, whatever your venture is. There's no perfect path. The perfect way to do it is just to do it. So that's my answer.
That's great advice. I love that.
My advice would be that, like you said, only you are holding your own self back, and a lot of people think that their ideas may piggyback off of someone else's idea, so that area is oversaturated, but that oversaturated area doesn't have a you. So you make your business, not what everyone else is doing.
Amen.
I love that. All right, you make your business. Love that. Anthony and Chantae, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
So good talking to you guys. I can't wait to go to Mochinut.
Yes.
Okay, so for all of our listeners, remember that if you are an entrepreneur or if you know someone who is, Greenville Starts is a great way for you to learn the things basically that you didn't know. You can just Google Greenville Starts and Furman, and it should be the very first thing that pops up, and get yourself on the list for the upcoming cohort that starts in the spring. That does it for this episode of the Classy Podcast on our special edition of Everyday Entrepreneur. This podcast, of course, is brought to you through a partnership between the Hill Institute for Innovation and Entrepreneurship and the Communication Studies Department here at Furman University. It is produced by student producers Kayla Patterson and Eliza Polich, who research our guests to create the rundowns and the questions for me to ask and talk to our guests about, and they edit everything together. So this is a true example of the Furman advantage. And again, I am your host, Mary Sturgill. Until next time, everybody, dream big.